You put your hand up if you're a doctor. Thank you. And nurse, practice manager, and any politicians or officials. No. You put your hand up if you know about the endocannabinoid system. Really? Okay. It's inside your body right now. Okay, you put your hand up if you've tried cannabis. Okay. Of course, it was always in a country where it was legal, like Amsterdam or Canada, and not illegal, because if you were to say that out in the open, you'd get investigated. Good? That's me, Dr. Ben Jansen. I'm a director at Early Heads Cannabis. I was born in Wellington, grew up in Whangataa, grew up in South Auckland, went to Auckland University Med School, and have worked around the country in EDs and as a general practitioner and as a sports physician, and now I'm living in the Gold Coast with my wife, and she's attending Griffith University there. There's two reasons why you're here. One, you want to learn about medicinal cannabis and the endocannabinoid system, or number two, you're just filling in space before drinks. And that's the second. I challenge you to know more about your endocannabinoid system and to know about the use of cannabis medically. So thank you for your attendance. I don't have time for propaganda in this talk. If you want to go into the propaganda for the last 80 years, the studies which have been done and suppressed and all that sort of thing, go online, go to YouTube, type in The Union and then cannabis, or The Scientist and cannabis, and you'll get some fascinating documentaries on that. You can listen to that on your flight home or in the car. My talk's dedicated to my late mother. She died at the ripe old age of 52 with neurological complications. That was in 2012. A number of years before that, in 2003, the US government put forward a patent, and they currently hold that patent for cannabinoids as neuroprotectants. They hold a patent right now for cannabis to protect your brain. It would have been helpful in my family. The take-home messages. Medicinal cannabis does not need to get the patient psychoactively high. You can give a low THC dose and they can have the effect they're looking for. You can relieve their pain or their spasms or whatever symptom you're trying to treat, and they don't necessarily need to be high. The dose to get high is variable per person. 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, it's variable. To get psychoactively high is not necessarily a bad thing. We do that already. If you give a patient enough opiates, they will be psychoactively altered. If you give them enough Lyrica, they'll be psychoactively altered. In fact, I had a patient who was walking into walls because the dose was too high. So don't be afraid that you're going to make the patient slightly high. You just have to work within their framework for that patient. If they're a cancer patient or they don't have to do anything specific and they don't mind that state, you can give them the high dose. If they want to stay in a space where they feel no high, then you give them a lower dose. So start low, titrate up. Start at 1 milligram of THC if you're using THC, because that's the only thing that's going to get the patient high. All the other cannabinoids don't get you high. You can take as much CBD as you want, you won't get high. The CBD or cannabidiol will modulate the THC high effects and also give you some anti-anxiety effects. The raw cannabis and the raw phytocannabinoids, especially the cannabidiol, are used to modulate the CB2 receptor and prevent oxidative stress, prevent heart attacks, ischemia, insult, and also prevent strokes, and it won't get high enough. Kids who have epilepsy are having high dose cannabidiol, and they are not high. Moving on. I might have to flick over a few slides if we're running behind. Whoa. Okay. Prohibition versus all the way down to recreational use. Even if we were to get to the recreational use stage, I think there still requires some level of control and safety, especially for sale. You can't have someone growing it up and then flicking it on to their mates if they haven't got good manufacturing practice to produce good quality product. On April Fool's Day, I did a search on the net to look for papers on cannabis, and there's nearly 32,000 papers. The research is out there. We're beyond that research day. We're into the phase 5 now. We really should be giving to the patients that need it. There are already patients that you have that are using it for various conditions, and bring them into society. Stop turning them into criminals. Your cancer patients, 60% of them will try cannabis, and as such they'll be getting that from the black market, and they are breaking the law. Opiates are killing our patients. There is a huge epidemic at the moment in the States. 22,000 deaths from opiate pain relievers in the US 2015. That's a huge number. Quick show of hands, who's seen a paracetamol overdose? Horrible, isn't it? Bleed out. You look down the bottom here, 0 deaths from cannabis ever. The LD50 is too high. Not to say you can't get high and fall off something or drive your car into something. You shouldn't be driving on it anyway. But 0 deaths from cannabis ever. To me, that's a stunning statistic. That's one of the big ones. Right, the endocannabinoid system. It's inside your body right now. All vertebrates have an endocannabinoid system. The two most well-known cannabinoid receptors are the cannabinoid receptor 1, CB1, the cannabinoid receptor 2, CB2, and their ligands, the molecules that will bind onto that, we'll go into in just a second. But the CB1 receptors are all through the brain and the spinal cord and peripheral nerve system, and mainly for down-regulation of the nerves. So if they're overstimulated, then anandamide will go backwards, bind onto the CB1 and turn down that nerve. It's a protective mechanism. The CB2 is throughout the body. It's for a variety of homeostatic properties or mechanisms. It's in the immune system, it's in your bones, it's everywhere. It's in embryos. If you block CB2 receptors in rats and you try and reproduce them, they won't get past the embryonic stage. They're mostly G protein coupled receptors. And if we have a look at this lovely picture here, it's not that complex. Once you get to know it, it's pretty bloody complex. We've got CB1 receptors here, CB2 receptors around somewhere over here, some PPAR receptors down here, nuclear receptors, and it's too hard to see from over here. So a nice coloured diagram here. Here's our endocannabinoid receptors, the CB1, CB2, the GPR 18, 55, and 19, which we'll come to in a little bit, and then the ligand-gated ion channels, TRP, serotonin receptor, and these are mainly found in nerve cells. So they work when you're trying to. Sorry, when you give your cannabinoids, you're trying to activate these receptors for analgesia. And lastly, the nuclear receptors for neuroprotection. We'll come past those briefly in a second. Here's the cannabinoid receptor 1 and 2. The CB1 receptors are found predominantly in the brain and the nervous system, working as a down regulator, as we said. Their main binding ligand is anandamide, AEA, and THC is a mimic of that. So if you give THC, it works to down regulate the nerves. It gives you that sensation. If you take a lot of THC or a lot of anandamide, then you will down regulate your nerves and feel a little bit high or stoned or whatever you want to call it. We said the CB2 receptors are found throughout the body, the immune system, the microglial cells, the GI tract, the peripheral nervous system, it goes on. The main binding ligand for CB2 is 2AG. It's active at both receptors, both CB1 and CB2. 2-AG and CBD are involved in the regulation of appetite, immune function, pain management, homeostasis. Here's our family of endogenous endocannabinoids. These are in your body right now. AEA, anandamide, 2-AG, the most common ones. Highly lipophilic. Anandamide was named for the Sanskrit word of supreme joy. It's across the receptors there. Abundant in the hippocampus and produced on demand from the phospholipid bilayer. Here's our arachidonic acid down the bottom, and here's our anandamide. Here's a nice picture showing from the phospholipid bilayer coming down via multiple pathways, produced on demand AEA, and then broken down by multiple pathways, fatty acid hydroxylase and the COX-2, which you might be familiar with. 2-AG, again, found throughout the body, binding at both CB1, CB2 and other receptors, does not bind to the to the TRPV1 receptor. It's the most abundant, and it's sitting on the right here. Arachidonic acid, AEA, 2-AG. Interestingly, it's found in human breast milk. Produced on demand, locally mediated. I'm showing a nice picture here of 2-AG, well, not a very nice picture, but a picture nonetheless. 2-AG here, produced via multiple pathways and then broken down by multiple pathways as well. COX-2, so if you give a COX-2 inhibitor, you'll be increasing your 2-AG. And a picture of the same. These are downloadable online. Just briefly. GPR18, the main ligand, is written next to these receptors here. Lowers blood pressure, has some immune effects as a chemoattractant for immune cells. GPR55, it's a multi-system effects, lowers BP, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, energy, homeostasis, and neuroprotection. GRP19, 119, regulation of energy and metabolism. And the TRPV1, aka vanilloid receptor, is involved with analgesia and pain perception. Also, cannabinoids can bind to the serotonin receptors for nausea and vomiting and neuropathic pain, the glycine receptors for analgesia, and the PPARs, which regulate cellular function in almost every tissue and involved in neuroprotection. There's our family again, inside you right now. Right, can I see a show of hands of anyone that has prescribed paracetamol in the last week? Great, you have manipulated the endocannabinoid system. Good for you. When you have paracetamol, does anyone remember how it works? It's a, don't shout out all at once, COX-2 inhibitor, good. We all remember that from med school. But also, sorry, going off track there. Cannabidiol is an agonist for the TRP receptor, and if you stimulate it, it will downregulate over time, such as the capsaicin in the cream. So paracetamol COX-2 inhibitor, its breakdown product is AM404 on the right here. AM404 is a potent agonist of the TRPV1 vanilloid receptor. It also works on the CB1 and CB2 receptors. It inhibits the uptake of anandamide, your natural endogenous endocannabinoid, and when those levels go up, then you get some effects from that as well. So now you know the diagram-ish. Clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. It's been coined recently. It is something which is going to be pretty hard to prove. There's a lot of dumping ground of patients with different syndromes in here, IBS, etc. They may have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. How do you tell? You can't really. You just have to try your patient on medication and see if they respond. So someone with migraine, have you tried cannabidiol? No. Well, we won't try that first. Migraines get better? Yes, no. Maybe we should try a little bit of THC, maybe. When you give your cannabinoids, what you're doing is you're decreasing the endocannabinoid ligand degradation. So you're pushing up the levels of AEA and 2AG, and then you're getting your positive effects there. Cannabis plants. These ones grow close to the equator, and these ones grow close to Russia. In fact, this one in Russia. The sativa, it's long, thin leaves, and the indica, relatively wide leaves. Sativa tends to be uplifting, people take it to feel more focused, etc. Used a lot for depression, anxiety, fatigue, mood disorders. Indica tends to be more sedating, relaxing. Good for anxiety, insomnia, pain, muscle spasms. Within cannabis, of the molecules there's over 100 different types of terpenes. That gives the flavour, the scent, characteristics, and then over 112 different types of cannabinoid. There's fibre, and there is some very good nutrition actually. Omega-3s, omega-6s. Whoops. If you see macronutrients down the bottom here, nearly 50% fats, and that's vegetable fats, that's good fats. Carbohydrates are low, fibre is high. You have to take my word on that. My wife's a dietitian. She was impressed by the 4 grams of fibre. And very high protein as well. This is downloadable as well as part of the talk. You can have a look at the actual breakdown of fatty acids, but all very good data. The terpenes that give the flavour, the smell characteristics, there are a number of them in there that have been slightly investigated for their therapeutic properties, and there's conflicting data on whether they're very helpful or not. A number of different cannabinoids. There are ongoing studies on the different effects of the different types of cannabinoids. One of the more interesting ones for me is CBN, which might not be on the list, which might be quite helpful for insomnia. But they all have all in the early stages of clinical data for that. Inside the plant, you can see that all of our cannabinoids start off with CBGA, and then they're synthesized down to their acid forms, THCA, CBDA, CBCA. All these acid forms are not psychoactive. So raw cannabis is not psychoactive. You have to heat it to get the THC. That's a much prettier diagram to look at. But the only things that will get you high or neurocyclically altered will be the THC and the CBN and the delta 8 THC, which requires you to heat the product. Here's our delta 9 THC, and of course, being who we are, we decide we need to try some different molecules, some synthetics. Cannabidiol does not get you high at all. You can take high dose CBD and not get high at all. It binds both the CB1 and CB2, but also on a number of other receptors, as we said, and delays the breakdown of anandamide. And with the other cannabinoids, this is what's called the entourage effect. Cannabidiol has antidepressant activity, analgesic properties, anti-osteoporosis properties, anti-cancer proliferative properties, although the data on that is biochemically based mostly, and it's a bit hit and miss. And anti-inflammatory properties. So when you use that clinically, You can use it for a variety of different conditions. Dose is variable across the board. The highest dose being for schizophrenia here up to nearly over 1,000 milligrams. For someone with chronic pain, which is going to be the most common prescription, you're going to be looking at 2.5 to 20 milligrams CBD. The CBD products are all essentially oral because you want that effect all the way through the day. I've had in the last week, 2 patients come in with radiculopathies, and they had started their CBD outside of my input. I wanted input on how much to take. One of the ladies had managed to decrease her Lyrica dose right down to a quarter of what it was. She was feeling a lot better. She was a pretty anxious sort of person as well, and it was working a little bit for her anxiety. There is no interaction of CBD with other medications. You don't need to do any dose adjustment. Its breakdown is inside the tissue, inside the cell, and some of it will be excreted in the feces. When you're prescribing, you have to adjust your dose for either oral or inhalation. If the patient is having it orally, they can increase the amount that gets into their body by putting some long-chain triglycerides with what they're eating. Big data. So it's a study done on rats in 2007. They gave the rats a heart attack by ligating the LED, and then they looked at the infarct size after, and they found that the infarct size was decreased by 66%. Huge number. It makes you think, why aren't we taking this as a supplement every day? Well, truth be told, my parents-in-law are taking it every day to protect their brains and protect their health. God bless the US government. 2003, they were assigned a patent for cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. I'll read directly. This newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment and prophylaxis of a wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases such as ischemia, age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia. Non-psychoactive cannabinoids such as cannabidiol are particularly advantageous to use because they